read. You should have an insatiable appetite of reading anything you can get your hands on. Reading actually helps your ability to think critically. It broadens your horizons. It gives you history. It gives you lessons. Having that ability to just always be interested in something new. Hello, I am Dr. Charles Russo, and I am a full-time instructor. And what I teach is primarily global terrorism, the theory of crime and criminology, as well as the forensic intelligence analysis courses, amongst others. But I have a background in, of course, criminal justice, but my overall career field has been intelligence, and that included working for both federal law enforcement as well as members of the U.S. intelligence community, from the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as well as the Central Intelligence Agency. A little bit about my experiences. Well, I am a veteran of the U.S. intelligence community with over 30 years of experience, having started out with the U.S. Navy as an intelligence specialist enlisted. I worked for such organizations as Naval Criminal Investigative Service, of course made famous by the TV series, where I did work at the Multi-Threat Analysis Center. Back in my day, it was the Anti-Terrorism Alert Center. But I also worked at various air wings and other commands, both in the active duty realm as well as the reserve areas. After September 11th, 2001, and the terror attacks upon the United States, I was recalled back to active duty, where I worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency, also at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who at that time hosted the National Infrastructure Protection Center, the precursor to what we have now as the Department of Homeland Security. And also I worked the Joint Chiefs of Staff, also looking at the Taliban within Afghanistan. And then after being released from my reserve duty after a few years, I went into the private sector, where I was a contractor working at or for the Defense Intelligence Agency's Joint Counterterrorism, Joint Intelligence Task Force for Combating Terrorism. I even moved on to doing human targeting, which was fascinating work, and that was looking for individuals within the counterterrorism realm that would make great assets, meaning informants. I moved on and went to a totally different area. I worked for the U.S. Air Force, the Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance mission, primarily the U-2 as well as the Global Hawk mission. Those were primarily focused on Afghanistan and counter improvised explosive device analytics. I then even went on after that to the Federal Bureau of Investigation as a federal civilian employee, as an intelligence analyst. Went through Quantico, the FBI Academy, which was a great honor, and then really proceeded to work collection management, meaning looking at the sources, our confidential human sources that were on the books. And it didn't matter what kind of crime we were looking at, whether it was terrorism, counterintelligence, white-collar crime. I did a couple of stints as counselor and adjunct faculty member with the FBI Quantico, and ended my career with the FBI as an intel analyst at the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytics Center in Quantico. And then moved on to actually academics after that, finishing my PhD and teaching online, as well as on campus universities. But I was drawn back into the intelligence community. I worked for a contractor working a counterterrorism mission at the Central Intelligence Agency. And that lasted for a few years, and here I am now teaching with Columbia Southern University, going on my third year. What special skill sets do I recommend possessing in order to go into the industry that I primarily had, which was the intelligence industry? Really, there's several skills. The first is critical thinking. Critical thinking is something that a lot of individuals really do lack, and they can teach critical thinking skills. It is one of those things that the human mind has the ability to learn. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking really is thinking about thinking while thinking about thinking. Yes, if you really kind of break that down slowly but surely, it really is thinking about what we're thinking about and why. It's asking those questions. It's understanding that we have our bias, assumptions, preconceived notions. Where did that information come from? How am I interpreting it? How am I going to write it? So that's the next skill, writing. The ability to really want to improve our writing through whether it's just our own research and wanting to improve it, but knowing that it is one of those skill sets that we have to have. So thinking, writing, research, knowing that yes, we have questions, we need to be asking questions, we can ask questions all day long, but it's looking at perspectives. And one of those skill sets that we always have to have is, the ability to ask questions, but also be ready to elicit that feedback and understand that's what we're getting is feedback. It's not necessarily judgment. So I think part of another skill set is just that. It's really having the patience for criticism, which as students and teaching students, many students will automatically argue about grades they receive or feedback they receive from instructors. And to me, that shows that you have a little bit more to do on critical thinking. That are you thinking the way that the instructor was thinking about reviewing your material? Also, we have to take some judgment and criticisms from our instructors as, having that background, that wisdom, and the experiences. Did I always see myself working within the intelligence community? No, actually, I did not. I started off my college career right after high school as a musician. I played strings, violin and cello, as well as the double string bass. Was even in my high school and college orchestra. So being an intelligence analyst, a spy, a spook, definitely never came into my thought process. It was not until I joined the Navy and was off to the Persian Gulf prior to the start of Desert Shield or Desert Storm. And that is where I had befriended individuals that were intelligence specialists and intelligence officers, and really began to understand what intelligence was, what they did, and absolutely loved it. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And that started my career within the intelligence community. That lasted for a beautiful 30 years. Did I have mentors who helped me professionally? Yes. I would not be where I am today without individuals throughout my 30-year career helping me. My first real mentor, that I have to say, was very challenging to me, both personally in my private life as well as my practitionership, my professional work, which I think goes hand in hand, that if we're not, as mentors, if we're not really trying to push the individual mentally, physically, in a direction where it's going to get them to do something. And it's not always just about having a mentor who is going to tell you what the right steps to do to get where you want. It's really going, okay, you have to make those decisions, but you have to make those decisions. You have to be motivated. They have to challenge you on, okay, so how do you want to get there? They're not the ones that are necessarily going to have the answers, but do they have the wisdom, the experience, maybe even the skill sets that you want to surround yourself with? That is part of mentorship. We always need to know that we want to seek out individuals who may be able to answer questions, but who are going to push us, who are going to ask us tougher questions on, okay, so what are you doing about it? To me, that was the most significant part of having some mentors throughout my career. I could say some were good, some were bad, but to me, no mistake whatsoever in having any of them. Each one of them provided an opportunity for me to grow. What was the most challenging part of my career path? Wow. I think overall, when we talk about a career path, was the deployments. Those have, and of course, the subject matter. Primarily, yes, being an intelligence officer and analyst, you can't always come home and talk about your work. You can't talk to your family about each and every day. So that's always, the secrecy is probably the most difficult part of my career path that I felt. It was also not being able to talk about where you've been, and that goes to the secrecy as well. There are still things within my career that I'm not able to talk to my family about. I mean, it is part of the job. But also, having done counterterrorism, the other difficult or challenging part is separating myself, just like, career police officers not bringing the job home. That you look at the world in a different lens. You see the worst of the worst. You see the not so beautiful parts of the world, and it's it's easy to kind of fall into that pit of despair if you really need to, because you can really not that you need to, but that if you were to, it could be without people to talk to. I think that's what's wonderful about the intelligence community. When you get to talk to others within your confined spaces, you can talk about certain things in the open because you don't have that secrecy. A lot of you have shared those same experiences. So that has been the most difficult part within my career path. It wasn't trying to attain different opportunities. Those will come. There's always volunteer opportunities. There's always opportunities to deploy or volunteer for missions, to get yourself some more education and training, so on and so forth. The final question of what advice would I give to students or alumni who are interested in entering the intelligence industry? I would say really think long and hard about it. Do a lot of your own research, ask some questions, but be ready to talk to your significant others, your close friends or family. Depending on where you go and what you want to do within the intelligence community, it's a little different from, say, working military intelligence or even for the Central Intelligence Agency as compared to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Some are overt, that you can at least say who you work for. There are agencies or jobs that you're not allowed to, that you wouldn't even be able to tell your spouse. That to some people is not what they want to do. The other advice is continue to always learn. And learning to me is a broad category. It's always learning to think critically, read. You should have an insatiable appetite of reading anything you can get your hands on. Reading actually helps your ability to think critically. It broadens your horizons. It gives you history. It gives you lessons. Having that ability to just always be interested in something new. Take on some skills through hobbies. Those kinds of things are really what, before entering into the intelligence world, is something that you should be doing. And again, really looking, what is it that you want to do? It is not necessarily an easy life. You are literally reading, researching, and writing every single day. And if that is something that doesn't impress you, that if you're an undergrad or a graduate student here and you're just like, hey, I'm writing my papers, my journals, my assignments, I'm doing the bare minimum just to get by, checking the box. Well, then being an intelligence analyst is not necessarily something that you want to be, because you want to be able to write, and you need to be able to have that criticism, take that criticism of improving your writing and going, okay, so let me understand what I did wrong, what I'm missing. Let me go research that some more. Let me add it and let me take it again and take that criticism again and see what I come up with. That is a big part of also the intelligence industry, is we're making judgment calls. We're analyzing information for decision makers. And a lot of these decision makers, you're talking the President of the United States, you're talking members of Congress and Senate, lawmakers, you're talking military generals, you're talking supervisors or operations officers, and it means lives. And so you also have to take that into part of the wondering, is that something you are ready for? I've been in many situations with individuals who have called it quits, that said, nope, I can't do this. I'm not about to do this. I'm done. And that's a personal, to me, that's very personal, as well as it shows that you know your limitations, you know what you need to do or not need to do in your life to make yourself happy and complete.